Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Well, welcome back to another episode of BARI Banter. I'm sitting here with my lovely leader, who apparently is quite rude. We got a message. We love our messages. We love when everyone sends messages through. We got one the other day that someone watched the video and they're like, love BARI Banter, love everything you're doing, but Lita just seems to be on her phone a lot. We find that quite rude.
They said it was disrespectful to the guest, and I just want to clear the air. I'm not being disrespectful to the guest. We purely write down all the questions, and I have all the questions for the guests on my phone.
Yeah, so for anyone looking, like you can see on my phone, I usually have my phone sitting here. Alita likes to hold it up because she's quite blind.
I'm
so
blind.
Like,
I can't. I need to have it closer to me than what Shannon does. So I'm not sitting here online shopping. I'm not ordering my HelloFresh.
She may be.
I'm occasionally I'll fact check, like if we say something or if somebody's talking about a post on Instagram, I'll either jump on and go through their Instagram, or I'll be trying to find the fact that we were just talking about. But 99.9% of the time,
Look at her. She gets so like hurt when she feels like she's being disrespectful. Little empath over here. She's kind of like, no, I would never be disrespectful.
And let me just make it clear as well. The email that we got, it wasn't being rude or anything like that. It was just a little bit of constructive feedback. Which I replied quite politely, but the reason why I am on my phone is so that I can keep up with the questions that we're asking.
And she's got to do a post on Instagram, and yeah, all that other stuff. So how has your week been anyway, Lita? Has it been all right? It's been quite it's gone through the motions. I said that on my post yesterday. Like, I just feel like I've fallen into like a bit of a pattern, especially after like the calf injury, the new job. I've been running just to run lately. I haven't really been training for anything, and that's why I said yesterday I think it's time to set a new goal and train for something, because I just, I think we're both the same. We haven't really had anything to really set our focus on and train for, so we've just been going through the motions of 5K your way, park run.
I didn't even do park run yesterday.
Yeah, but
I've got a broken toe.
Yeah, she's got a broken toe.
But
yeah,
I'm also
probably not broken, probably just
fractured toe.
Jolted.
It's my little toe sore. Okay, leave me alone.
Poor little toe.
No, but I actually won a competition to start a CrossFit gym.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to be giving that a go on
CrossFit.
Thursday. CrossFit. So I'm hanging up my running shoes for 6 weeks. I'll still run, but I'm going to be focusing on CrossFit. So let's see if I can get me some abs in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, speaking of abs,
talk about CrossFit.
Yeah, our guest today is an absolute beast. And I'm excited to sit down and talk to him, because I actually listened to another podcast he was on, and I was like, I liked the way he talked. I thought he had a really good information. And
the way that he filled out the form that we get people to fill out, it was in so much detail, and I feel like he's going to be a very good speaker.
All right, let's introduce our guest today.
So this morning we are sitting down with Charlie, who started his journey back in 2009 with a lap band. In 2019, he had the lap band removed and has since had the sleeve surgery. With a starting weight of 135 kilos, he is currently sitting at 80 kilos and has managed to completely overhaul his life.
Completely.
Please welcome Charlie. And Charlie, you have to excuse me, how do I pronounce your last name properly?
Palupe.
Palupe.
So you're going to have to, yeah. So most people will say Palupe. It's Palupe, but
we'll just go.
We'll pop your Instagram handle there for people to click, because your Instagram handle is Charlie Palupe.
Palupe.
Yes.
Did I get that right? 2009 was when you had the lap band?
Yes, I had a lap band done in May 2009.
Wow.
2009. Wow. So you've actually, 12 years. 12 years since you started this whole process for you. So, let's go through your lap band. So obviously, why did you choose the lap band back in 2009?
Okay, so I think I chose to back in 2009 mainly because at that time I thought it was reversible. And I think, to put it in context, 2009, the internet, like social media, was relatively new. So I was on Facebook at that time, because I think I was just coming out of university, but there wasn't any support groups. There wasn't that much information. And so I think the sleeve was available at that time as well. So a couple of things. One is I couldn't access as much information. Two, there wasn't that many stories of people who've done either the lap band or sleeve. All I could access was kind of the success story you find on the surgeon's website.
The testimonials.
And the testimonials. And the other factor is I think I would have been in my 20s. Yeah, I hope so. That was about over 10 years ago. Yeah. And so I thought to myself, you know what, it's reversible. There's a lot of unknowns, and that if it doesn't happen how I envision it to be, then I could, so that was the main thing.
It was almost fearful of the unknown. So it's because obviously you didn't have the information out there to understand it fully. You were kind of fearful of like not knowing how your body was going to respond to it. So for you, band being reversible was taking kind of that little element out of it of the, you could reverse it if you need be. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And have you found, obviously, over the last 10 to 12 years, social media has become like it's almost blown up essentially. Have you found that it's been really handy for you in making the decision to go from band to sleeve, or?
Yes, to an extent. I think there's much more visibility of people who've had different bariatric procedures, and there's a lot more and I think the conversation has shifted from. I felt like when I got the lap band, it was almost. I hate saying this. It was almost like embarrassing to tell people. Like I would only share it with people who I felt were coming from a good place or had my best interest or were not going to judge me. But I think fast forward to now, because there's a lot of people sharing their stories, and I think a better, I wouldn't say necessarily a greater awareness amongst the general community about obesity and how it's a very complex chronic medical condition, that there's a lot of different factors. And whilst there's a lot of different people out there who, with yourself, there's commonalities about the different issues that we have to deal with and the different behaviors and environments that we grew in that may have led to our obesity. Everyone's story is still completely different.
Yeah.
So,
we've spoken about it before, saying that, like, obviously we're very loud and proud about having bariatric surgery, but there's certain people that you'll still say that you've had it done and you just see their reaction. And not that I'm ashamed by it in any way, shape or form, but you still get the judgment around it.
Yeah. It's almost, I think it's hard for some people who haven't struggled with obesity to understand the complexities behind it, because it's not, as you just said, it's not just straightforward. This person's obese, they just eat too much. There's a lot of like things behind it that lead someone to be obese. Because I had a conversation with Obesity Awareness. It was like a obesity group, and they were literally trying to bring the face of obesity to the forefront to kind of make people understand that like it's not a case of, it's black and white. It's not black and white for obesity. There is a lot of other things, and individuals have their own little things that led them down the path to be obese, to kind of help people understand it. Rather than categorizing everyone in the one category, in the same box. It's kind of understanding why people are obese, and it's not as simple as people think. Because you're right, obesity, like weight loss surgery, does have a little stigma around it, and it still does this day. So 2009, I would have imagined it would have been like, you had what? Explain that. Oh, why did you do that? I don't understand it. Where these days there is a little bit more knowledge and a little more education around it, so people are kind of...
And there's so much information out there now too.
Yeah, because I get a lot more these days, people being like, oh yeah, my friend had it, or my sister had it, so people are a little bit more aware of it these days. It's not so much like the unknown to a degree. So how would you say the band versus sleeve, like, is it been a big adjustment, or was it very similar in certain ways? Or like, let us understand how it kind of differs for you.
Okay, I think, because as we say, before I move into my answer for that, I think it's important to say that I have seen people on social media who've had the lap band and who have been very successful long term as well. I would say that I'm not one of those people. So initially at the beginning, I was successful, but then about probably 4 or 5 years post-op from my lap band, I was having a lot of issues with reflux and because you know how the lap band's adjustable, right? So I actually think that's a positive and a negative. Positive is, yes, you can adjust it. The negative is you can adjust it.
Yeah. Because, you've got control over it.
Because what happened was, I would learn this. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm going. One time I was about to go on a holiday, so I went into my doctor and I got it adjusted so it's tighter. So obviously I was eating less and I was really determined. I wanted to look good. I wanted to fit into like plain feet, right?
Yeah.
And then just before I leave, I would go in and ask for, and I'm very creative at putting my case forward, got it, taken it, like release the tightness, so then I can eat more, because I'm thinking I'm going to be overseas and I want to eat all these foods, right? Because that's part of travel. The problem with that is it just reinforces this poor relationship with food. And I can only recognize that now that I'm in a different headspace with different life experiences, because, you know, on the one hand, I was creating these habits of eating appropriately with the right portions, and then all of a sudden I've just reset the clock back to now I need more food to feel physically full again, because my tummy has now gone back to normal. And so, and then I think that just creates, for me personally, not a very good relationship with food. You know, like I wasn't looking at food more from first nutrition, but it was more first just enjoyment. And I do think food plays a really good part in people's lives and culture. It doesn't matter what culture or what different cuisines you're in. But I think first and foremost, it should be about nutrition, and then you can add in the textures and the flavors. You can have all of that. You just need to provide some kind of framework to make sure that you're not overeating or whatnot. Yeah.
So you've clearly had an adjustment mentally from the band to the sleeve and how you're approaching food. Do you think how you're viewing food changed because of the age, like, because obviously you got older between the band and sleeve, or do you think it's mainly due to the experience of having the band and, you know, obviously those bad habits sneaking back in and you going, oh, why didn't it work for me? Like, what would you put down to the reason why you made that mental adjustment and why you understand it the way you do now?
Okay. To be honest, I really don't know, but I'll try and answer it. All I can say is, yeah, I think it's mindset. When I decided to go ahead with the sleeve, I kind of did some self-reflection and go, what did work and what didn't work with the lap band. So with the lap band, I did go and see a dietitian, and I'm pretty sure the dietitian gave me really good advice about the types of food. But it's really easy for me now to reflect back and see that I just wasn't ready, and I felt like I was doing it for the wrong reason. I was just trying to kind of wing the advice that the dietitian or let's say the training person was telling me, and trying to find that easiest way through, instead of trying to really consider what was given to me and then see how I can adapt that to my life. And I think so. One of the big lessons I've come to recognize is that, you know, the advice of the surgeon, the advice of the dietitian, or whoever the professional is that you're reaching out for help or assistance, it's only going to be as meaningful and as helpful for you, depending on your willingness to like actually try some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to have,
but then you've got to put it into place.
Yeah, so before my surgery, like pre-surgery, I did a lot of reading. Like I followed yourself, Shannon. I think I found you, Alida, quite early on as well. And I'm one of those people, I just follow in the background. And what I do is I go, all right, so these people, I can, like, this is sort of my future state. I'm looking at people and I want to see, that's where I see myself in the future. So then what I do is I'll go, what is Shannon doing? What is Alida doing that works for them, that can work for me? So I understand that not everything that you're doing is necessarily going to work for me, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some of the things that you're doing that I think would work. So for example, I don't do the long distance run. It just makes me feel like I'll run halfway through I just want to quit. Like, you know, I'm like, I need to find something that works for me. So I started doing weights, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but eventually I'm like, I actually enjoy this. This is my thing. And then I know I still need to do cardio. So I do cardio once a week. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is I could see, I follow people and I try to, I was kind of doing a mental note. What are these people doing that is making them quite successful and happy and vibrant in their space? And then try and apply that to myself. And it's not about trying to be like the next Shannon or the next Alida. It's just trying to find like what does me look like in doing all those, applying all those different things that those people are doing.
I love that, because you're not actually comparing yourself. You're just choosing little bits and pieces that you want to then apply to your life to get to your best happy state.
I get that, because like I'm the same. Like I look at people who are 3 years down the track or whatever from me, and I look at what is helping them keep the weight off. And that's kind of what I talked about in my post the other day. It's like, as much as I have fallen off the wagon with my training, even 20% of what I was doing is 200% more than what I was doing prior to surgery. You know what I mean? Because I've integrated certain habits into my lifestyle, you know, I can go, oh, I've hardly trained. I still ran like 15Ks or 20Ks a week. But it's 20% of what I was doing when I'm training. So it's like, it's almost having that fallback and that safeguard for me is like kind of, you know, I'll never get back to what I was, purely because what I was is 200% less than what I'm doing, if that makes sense. So it's almost impossible for me to fall back into the bad habits that I once had, because
don't say impossible, because it can happen.
Yeah, but I think I've got such a relationship now with exercise that if I go without it, I feel like what rubbish. I used to feel with food. You know what I mean? Like I feel like, oh, I'm missing something. Like something's missing in my life now. So like, you know, I will go out and run for fun and enjoyment and like mental stimulation now.
It's like park run or 5K your way. We do it every week.
Yeah, without even thinking about it.
It's just part of
so
your routine.
Integrated into who you are now that you got to have those safeguards, because if you're just basing your success around the lack of food that you're having, that will eventually not be a thing. Like, you know, now I could probably put myself back where I was with what I eat, because I am 3 years down, you know, the stomach's stretched a little bit, you know, your tolerance to what you eat has kind of increased, and you could self-sabotage. But now, because I've got, you know, that I can recognize my food's not great, I'm still exercising, I can pull it back in before it gets too bad and kind of have that self-awareness.
But I think also too, though, and a lot of people do this, their lifestyle changes without them realizing that a lot of the things that I do in my spare time now is involuntary exercise. So like, I don't want to just spend my weekends sitting on the couch watching Netflix the whole day. Like, I want to make sure that I get outside and I go for a walk through the national park, or, you know, I go for a walk down to my local coffee shop.
Or grab a coffee and go for a walk with the dogs or whatever it is.
It's just like involuntary exercise now, because I've become the person who I want to be outside. I want to be doing things, which again is me doing 200% more than what I was doing before, because weekends would be the most exercise I'd do would be walking around the shops trying to find clothes to fit me. Like, whereas now I'm just, you know, doing things for the sake of doing things.
Yeah, it's just part of who you are. Do you find that too as well, Charlie? Do you feel like you've...
Yeah, look, I think it's weird how fast you forget like the former you. Or at least for me personally, like as you were talking about, you know, there's incidental exercises during the day. I remember in my earlier days through this journey is as I was getting fitter, I started recognizing some of the behaviors that I was doing previously that was almost, I wouldn't go as far as saying enabling now, but almost contributed to my obesity. You know, for an example, I work in a city, work from home 2 days a week, but when I am, like when work colleagues are organizing, say, a lunch or a coffee, without even recognizing it, I was selecting places that had aircon or not too far to walk, or there was no hill, like, you know. So, and little things that, you know, when I walk into, before I started with the sleep, I will walk into like a restaurant and immediately kind of quickly size up the chair if I can fit in there, all that kind of stuff. Like, and I've forgotten about that. Whereas now that's not a thing anymore. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, like if someone is trying to organize a catch up with me, it's like whether or not I agree or not agree for a certain place over another, it's not about, like, I don't have to think about those things anymore. But in hindsight, it's all these little behaviors that can contribute to that. Like, I would never, like, and then as I started my journey, I did do, you know, some of the things that other people have done. You know, I'll get off a bus stop earlier. I'll start adding in those, you know, and it's when I catch up with other people who are lack of a better word, like similar to what I was before. Like, that's when I notice how fast I'm walking. But like you start realizing how quicker you're doing things and things that you are maybe took for granted in
You
the
do,
past.
yeah.
Yeah, I do now.
Because
Yeah,
it's definitely like social anxiety is, I always talk about that, like how, you know, you don't have it as much when social situations like that, like, you know, what you just said with the chair, you know, like I never think about the chair I'm going to sit on now, where it used to be a real concern for me, like,
especially
you know,
those
sitting
plastic
chairs, going on airplanes. Like I just go on an airplane now, you know, I sit down and I put my music in and there's no second thought about who's going to sit next to me. Am I encroaching on their space? Going to the movies, same thing. Like all these little things, sitting in a food court and are people judging me? All these little things really do play a part into why I personally, I was such a hobbit before. Like when I was bigger, I didn't want to leave the house because I was just so, like I would felt drained mentally from all the anxiety of like, you know, what's this? Where am I? And you had to be so self-aware because you were judging yourself and you were kind of asking yourself questions that other people may not have been asking, but you were asking, am I encroaching on this person? Am I making this person uncomfortable? Do I smell? Do I, you know, like all these things, and like they do play such a massive part into why we were the way we were.
And talking about social anxieties and stuff, you wrote in your form, Charlie, that you found that as you were becoming fitter, you sort of started becoming less confident in yourself.
I know. It's weird because I've always, I don't know, like I feel like when people look at my social media, they probably think this person's out there maybe. I feel that in person, my personality is actually much bigger. I try to tone it down a bit on social media. But yeah, the reason why I said that though, when I was much bigger, I was really, really confident, you know, like yes, there was the social anxiety that kicks in, but there is a part of my brain that kind of just switches in and go, like there's a moment where I feel insecure, but then I've just conditioned myself throughout my whole life to just switch it off and just go and do it. But as I was losing weight and on social media, I would just easily share things on my page, but I keep it like a private page. But as I was losing weight and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I'm looking fitter and fitter. I kind of got into there was this stage where I felt hesitant to share. I almost felt like because I now look fit, what am I trying to say? I feel like I didn't have for some reason I felt like it was okay for bigger me to share and be positive about how I look, but I couldn't do it when I now look fit. If that makes any sense.
Did you feel like that's because like you feel like it's almost egotistic to share when you're smaller, and when you're bigger, it's like you had that safeguard of like people felt bad for you, or like?
Yeah, look, and this is purely might be just a thing for me, and I'm not sure if there's other people who think the same, and I haven't quite worked out exactly why I think like this. I've worked through it, but I've landed on maybe it was my own internal kind of bias, or how do I put it? My internal filters that I put on other people. Maybe that was a view that I held as a bigger person, looking at people who were fit and how they made me feel at the time. But now that I'm where those people are, I have to be conscious of that. I know, but I eventually landed to I always I self-reflect all the time. I go, what would the former Charlie do? Yeah, he would get up if he's feeling good and he's just done a workout and feeling on top of the world, he would just share it. So I'm like, you know what?
Workout that you shared this morning of you on your bike, rocking out, dancing, singing.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm going to do it. But I actually use, so I use my Instagram more as, it's almost like my coach. Like, you know, I need to turn up I just need to do my workout. And it's become part of my life actually, working out. It's like eating now.
Yeah, because you said you're a very routine person. Like you have a very structured, like you like to be structured. And do you feel like you've incorporated that exercise into your structure so much now that you almost would feel like I said before, you would feel like you're missing something if you didn't have it in your life now. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like the first thing I do in the morning. And I had a recent tragedy in my family, and so it was kind of everything else that was happening around me. And I was trying to look at it from a positive perspective, because I thought, you know what, I feel like when life is going well, everything is going to be quick. But the real test for me is when things happen in life that are outside my control, and I need to find a way to, it's not to say not allow those things to distracted me, but that's the real test of my habits that I've developed.
Yeah.
So, I had a family relative passed away. So, going through that mourning process. So I thought, you know what, the only thing I can control is my food. I need to keep my exercise. I'm still going to allow myself to feel my emotions and everything else. But now it's the most important time to do these things. And I found that exercise actually helped me with that, process of
and processing. Yeah.
And like it was my me time where I was, and food became important. There was a few days where I kind of just let my guard down and just
ate your emotions.
Like, yeah. And it was the first time I'd done that since the sleep. And so I try to keep a mental note. Like, it felt so good when I was eating those foods, but the hour or two afterwards, I'm just like, oh, like it's actually made me feel worse.
Yeah.
Like, so now I have to deal with these emotional stuff, but physically now I could feel my body just struggling to process this food.
Yeah, that was a really good point you brought up then too, because like I found, like I said yesterday, when I had a new job, I had a calf injury, I found the excuses before I found the reasons too a lot quicker, and like I had to recognize that yesterday, and I said, these are excuses. These are like I could easily run now. I could easily train now. But because I've had a change in my lifestyle and a change to what I had structured, I then kind of resorted back to like not prioritizing things that I did prioritize. So that's kind of what you said then. When little things came into your life, you still kept that structure, so that's a willpower thing. And that's, one thing I've been really good at that. But then obviously I had two little things that came in and they kind of refocused me a little bit away from what I know is important to me. And I didn't have the willpower to then say, yes, I need this. And that's why I've got to now where I've gone, yes, I need this back again. I need to start training again. I need to start pushing my body again because I love it. But it's just having that little deviation in what was important or what happened in my life. Just, those excuses got the better of me. So, you're very important.
So I think it's really like the other thing I've learned is like even with the recommendations that my dietitian gives me, I think I try not to be as strict, but there are things I now feel I do that has helped me along the way. So for an example, can you see me?
Yeah.
So like I always make sure I have props for you. Like I always make sure I use this
portion plate
and this
and portion bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever I'm at home, I eat with those. And so I got this from Target. So this is for my snack. Like when I have,
so it's like a small bowl. Yeah.
So it's a mental, and then for work, when I go into work, I use all these different containers.
Oh, so it's helping to control your portions. Yeah.
Yeah, so what happens is over time, I've learned that I could actually eat anything I want. But obviously in my head, so like I just have to make sure I've got the protein, the carbs, and the veggies. And so whenever we have dinner and lunches, and just say we have bolognese, right? So then I'll put the leftover mince in here and portion them out. And so in terms of structure, I make sure I get those basics right. The portions are there, and the composition of my food. And then that gives me the freedom to go out and just not eat whatever I want, but those are my basics. And then if you see my social media, I like going out. I love food. I love eating out. But now the menu doesn't scare me anymore. Like I just look at it and I'm like going, okay, which one's going to give me my protein? And I used to only order from entree. And now it's fine for me if I order from the main. I went through a period where I was embarrassed to ask for leftover containers or, a takeaway box. Now it's just like natural to me now. Like it doesn't matter. I could be at the most poshy restaurant sitting there eating and then next thing
can I have my filet mignon to go?
and because I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking, wow, I could eat all these different foods, but I just got to make sure, and I ask them, sometimes menus, it's not like you can't work out how to describe it if it's got like a carb in there.
Yeah.
And so, because sometimes they'll serve you food and it's just like the protein with veggies and there's no carb. And so it's really important for me for my main meal to have a little bit of carb there. Yeah. And I find that keeps me going. And I was chatting to a work colleague, and they're saying, "Oh, you're doing so well," and they did say something that kind of threw me, but then I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Is that because they see that. I feel like if they see me, they'll see this physically fit person.
Yeah.
And then they ask the question like, so do you think you could have done it without the flea?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, my answer is no.
Yeah.
I needed that. And if I rewind time, I would still like what the sleeve enabled. And I try to, it's a catch-22. One is I never want to try and explain to anyone why I took the sleeve, because that's my decision, my story. I don't need to explain.
You don't need to explain yourself.
Anything to them. Yeah. And even when people would say to me, it's the easy way out. And I said, well, it depends. Is it a competition? Like, am I competing with you to see who's like, you know?
Yeah.
And then I always say to them, like, your opinion that it's the easy way out, that's perfectly fine. That's true for you. Don't do it. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, but for me personally, this is a tool that I've done my research. I've spoken to my surgeon and I've made a decision that this is what I need to get to where I need to go. And I think most people misunderstand that. They think it's just about the removal of your stomach, but it also does other things. You know, it changes your physiological makeup, and I think I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure it reduces your body's ability to produce the hunger hormone.
Serotonin.
So, yeah.
Oh, ghrelin.
So,
Serotonin.
Yeah. So then it's great. Yeah, I think it's ghrelin. Yeah. So and that's why those first stages are really, really important. So I think because I do have people ask me about what I'm doing, I'm upfront about it. I know I've had that bariatric surgery, but since then I've worked really, really hard to make sure I understand food. And I felt like the more I understood food, the more freedom I got from food.
100%.
Totally.
Like I can have an ice cream on the weekend or whenever. If I'm out, I'll just make sure it's one scoop.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I feel like, once I put up walls and restrict, that's when it all goes downhill for me.
100%.
So talking about you know, prior to surgery and all of that sort of thing, you sent us through a very extensive list, I guess we could say, about your goals leading into surgery. I have them here. So you called them strengthen, motivation and commitment, aspirational goals of Charlie. And you gave us 9 of them. So I'm just going to read these out for everybody. 1, I can feel healthy and well to support my family. I can buy clothes off the rack that suit my personality and dress how I want to be viewed at work. 3, I can look and feel better. 4, I can look like a professional who is excelling at work and home life. I have more confidence. I can travel and not feel uncomfortable in airplane seats. I can sleep without snoring. I can travel and not have obesity-related issues such as rashes. And I can take control of my health and well-being.
What a great list.
You're obviously a very structured, we've spoken about this already, you're a very structured person, and I absolutely love that list. It's played with my OCD that you only had 9 and not 10,
not
but
10.
That's okay. I can deal with that. But obviously you've achieved so much more than just this list. And looking back now at this list of things, how do you, like you were saying, you know, that things have changed drastically since you wrote this list. So, you know, obviously your goals have changed and the way that you feel has changed. So talk us through your list.
I think when I look back at that list and when I was filling out the form, it forced me to look back at the list, right? And I now recognize that number 1 on that list, number 9 on that list is actually number 1. Yeah. That I take control of my health and well-being. Yeah. Because I think because I have a different mindset now, I'm at a different space, I'm at a different stage of my journey, I recognize that some of the things that I listed at the top are not so important to me anymore. So, but obviously to support my family and friends is always going to be a key priority. Yeah. But things like clothes and things and all that kind of stuff, yes, initially it did. It felt so good to buy clothes that fit, and I'll walk into the office like super confident. I'm just like, I'm in my power clothes, you know. I can go in but I now recognize that, you know what, I could have just turned up in my other clothes, and I would, my colleagues respected me for my work ethic, my values, how I managed the relationship, and my thoughts, and you know what that kind of aspect.
Yeah.
And so I now recognize that I had, when I did this list, I was putting too much emphasis on the look, whereas really people, those around me who I'm really close to and who I've developed really good professional or personal relationships with, they would have had me they would have given me a seat at the table regardless of what I look like.
Yeah.
But that's not to say it's not enjoyable to go out and shop for clothes and things like that. But yeah, all these things I've achieved. And so I'm in a space now where I'm thinking, I need to reset some goals. And so, I spent all my life going up and down, like with my weight, that now that I'm here, like, what now? Like,
Yeah, because it is. You've always had that. And I said that the other day, like we have spent our whole lives on a constant diet.
Yep.
And every New Year's resolution used to be lose weight, get healthy. And then you get to a point, like you're saying now, where like I haven't got on the scales in like 2 months probably. It's kind of, you get to a point you're like, wow, I don't have to really worry about my weight now. Like I go through the motions of life and that's just a consequence of it. So you kind of go, oh, okay, I guess my New Year's resolution can be like, what was yours this year? It was like, use a word. What was the word?
I use a saying at the beginning of every year.
Yeah.
And mine was just make it happen. I think
it was, make it happen.
Just like do it.
You've got to get more creative with what your goals are because you don't just have the weight related goals.
Thanks for reminding me of that because I've actually done what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think I was trying to reflect and go, I feel like my goal is not necessarily a thing or like a particular thing that I can attain. It's more just refining like my values and concepts of how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And so one of them is I've got this thing that I like. My favorite things that I keep in my head is I have to make sure I stay outside of my comfort zone, and that's both in my personal lifestyle, like health, and also in my professional life. So in my professional life, if I walk into the the door and I don't feel like a little bit nervous about, I'm not so sure what I'm doing. Or the day I walk in, like I know exactly what I'm doing, everything is going to work out. Yeah. That's when I know I need to find, either ask for a different project or seek out something that will make me feel just a little bit uncomfortable. Because that's when I'm in my learning phase.
Zones.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to apply the thing with my weights training. I think it's kind of working. So like, I recently just changed it up. So I do 3 repetitions, 3. I don't know what they call them, sets, 3 sets. Yep. So, but I start now so the first one I only do 8, but I go really heavy. And so what I'm trying to, and then the second one would be a bit lighter, but more repetitions, and then last even more, and then a lot more repetitions. Yep. So what I'm trying to do is for that first one is where I've mentally said, I'm going to really push myself and see how heavy I can lift this in a safe, with the right kind of, so techniques. I don't injure myself.
Yeah, techniques and stuff.
Yeah. So to me, my kind of goal right now is to consciously keep myself outside my comfort zone.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Seek discomfort. That was one of my sayings. I love that because it's always like, yeah, you're right. Growth comes outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. I think it's a really good thing to point out too, though. Like, obviously, we've just reflected at your goals from at the start of your journey. But I think it's a really important thing to let people know that your goals need to be forever changing, because otherwise if you don't reevaluate and reassess your goals, like we were talking about before, you're just going to get into this like comfort zone or this rut, and you've got to continue growing and evolving and making sure that you are.
What is it? The comfort zone's a beautiful place, but nothing grows there.
Yeah. Oh.
Like, I love that saying because it is. It's like I fell into, that's how I became where I got to, where I needed weight loss surgery, because I was always seeking the point of least resistance. So like throughout life, I was always looking for the easy way, the comfortable way, which then led me to be like, I guess, lazy to a degree, and I found myself not wanting to go out because it was too uncomfortable or, and I think putting yourself in that point of constantly reevaluating and pushing yourself, not like running ultra marathons and stuff, but just putting yourself in a position that kind of tests yourself or makes yourself assess who you are, is a great way to kind of continually grow as a person.
Yep. You go.
No, you go.
I was going to change.
And I was just thinking on that. So on that note, like I was just thinking, like other comments people have said to me is, you're very positive. You're always positive. Do you ever feel sad? And I said, actually, I do feel sad. Like I used to call myself optimistic and positive. I think I still am, but as I grow, I would rather describe myself as measured because I feel like there is a time and a place where it is important to be positive. If the odds are against you, you just need to switch that positive and just give it a go. Yeah. But I think it's equally as important to also recognize that some things that do happen can be and are negative, and that's okay as well. You just need to sit down, pause, reflect, and then you need to decide, is it something, and then decide on what is within your control and what is outside your control from that, and then you either sideway and keep going, or accept that that's not for you, and find an alternative altogether. So I'm with my post on social media, because I was scanning through, my God, I rarely, or even, I'm like, there's nothing negative here. Like, I'm trying to find something where I've got, and I've recognized that that's just not in my nature. And I also, because how I process the things that happen to me that is not ideal, is I deal with it, I don't like to put it, I don't like to put it down in writing, because I feel like I'm giving it power then.
Yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah. And you also, you're dealing with those things with your nearest and dearest. You don't need to tell the whole world that, you're going through a tough time.
Like, unless you think it's going to help someone. And that's where I kind of draw the line. Like, if I have, yesterday, that was probably the most negative post I've done about myself. I'm very positive and, optimistic. But I kind of did want to say to people that, I still fall off the wagon. Yeah. I still have bad days. Because I feel like that can, I had a few people reach out and say, that's me at the moment. Like, I had a baby, or I had this, and I found myself all these habits creeping back in. I'm like, it's very important to kind of understand that it's not all rainbows and sunshine all the time. And sometimes you will fall off, then you will fail, but you never really fail unless you quit. And I think that's really important. Like, if you take the lessons away from these little things, eventually they will become very important and very powerful little tools to help you continue on the road to success.
And I think that's the thing I've noticed as well. Like, when you were saying before, you're always positive, bubbly, and you portray this really happy person. I found that for myself, now that I've lost all the weight and I'm comfortable who I am as a person, I actually allow myself to feel more emotions, if that makes sense. Because the bigger me, I was like, no, you've always got to be happy. You've always got to be, this big ball of sunshine. I don't want to, bring my negativity into the space. And so I was always trying to be that person. Whereas now I'm I'm allowing myself to feel all of these emotions. And you're a person, you're a human. You're allowed to have a crappy day. You're allowed to be feeling the way that you're feeling. And that's really weird. That's the first time that I've ever really thought about it. I am allowing myself
you're right, though.
to...
in a public situation, I was the same. It was you didn't want to be Debbie Downer and be that negative person because you already were the bigger person and you felt like you were, already...
You almost had to overcompensate. But now I allow myself, and sometimes I do just say, no, guys, I can't, because I
having a bad day,
I need to be at home, or I actually reached out to your mum the other day because I had a really crappy day and you weren't home, and I said to your mum, I was like, my glass is just empty. Not only is my glass empty, my glass is completely shattered, and I was like, I have no way of filling it up at the moment because Shan's not here. And that's the first time in a long time that I've actually allowed myself to be like, hang on a second, you need to put yourself first. And then your mum came over and, it was all fine. And then the next day I woke up and it was all good again. But I actually acknowledged the way that I was feeling, and it was okay for me to feel that way.
Because that's a self-worth thing, really, isn't it? A self-appreciation thing.
I agree. And I think those are all very valid points. And because what I've noticed is that we all interpret the world and communicate differently. And so in my real life, in my day-to-day life, I feel like I'm an extrovert, maybe too extrovert. Anyway, I'm currently doing a postgrad at UT, and one of the earlier units was talking about communication by listening. Obviously, I'm giving myself an exemption because I'm getting interviewed, so
Yeah.
but I've been consciously, So, but in the past few months, I've been consciously trying to practice communication by listening, and I actually found it's actually it was foreign to me, but the more I practice it, the more I can see the value in it.
Yeah.
And it's about, and so by really this, like I've got family and friends who their form of communication is through text or through, MIMS, but some they prefer like telephone, some in person. And so, when we're talking about negatives and positives, if someone confides in me, and usually it'll start with like, oh, so sorry for being negative, but this is happening. I always try to say to them, like, never apologize for that. Like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. You just need to put it out on the table, and I'm going to try and help you sort it out. But, I'm not a professional in that kind of stuff, but I'll help you unpack it and work out what does that mean for you, and hopefully give you some tools that work for me that hopefully you can apply to deal with that. But so I think like where I am with that is I'm conscious that I do have things that happen to me that are not very good, but how I deal with it is maybe different from how other people would deal with it in form of how I communicate it. So my first preference would always, like if I'm having a really bad day, is I like that sort of face-to-face, real-time human interaction.
Quality time.
That's me. Yeah. But if that's not possible, the next thing would be like a phone call, but it's not text. I just have this thing with putting things in text and sending it.
Yeah, it's very unpersonal. It's like,
but it's also writing it down, and it's almost kind of like putting it. They say put to the universe what you want, and if you're physically putting it down in text and visualizing it, and I'm a very, very visual person too, so I can completely understand where you're coming from. So I really love the way that your brain works, because the way, like you wrote on the form that you're in remission from obesity, that you haven't cured it, but you're in remission from it. So, and essentially that means that at any point in time you could slip back into that slippery slope of getting back to obesity, which obviously you have put all of the tools into place. Like, you've got your little containers, you've got your props that you just showed us. I think you've definitely gotten into your mind space.
I even have these. I feel like...
For those of you who aren't watching the video, he just held up all of his multivitamins and his calciums and everything. So my question was going to say to you, what are you doing to make sure that you never head down that road again? But just from talking to you for the last half an hour or so, I think it's quite evident that you're very much regimented, and you very much are, accountable for how you're going. So
and I'm very careful with people. Like I'll run into people who, especially people who haven't seen me for a few years, and they'll go, what have you done? So, but I, like most people who have had a lifelong had to deal with obesity for their entirety of their life, is I've done everything. I've done light and easy, I've done diets, I've done the really strict, go to the gym, cut the carbs, lost the weight, gain it back. I did the lap band. So if anything, what that tells me is that there is no cure for my obesity. And right now, what the sleep has done for me is help me reset. I wouldn't tell me to reset. It has helped me have another shot at making changes. And so I now recognize that it's important for me to put in those little habits and then apply them every day. And because I feel like if I do those habits, I'm going to be able to maintain and sustain the healthy lifestyle that I'm living right now long term. Obviously the vision is forever until, but what I've noticed though at work, I don't know about you, but like there's people at work who are quite physically fit. Their skin is glowing. They look, they probably never had obesity, but I've watched how they eat, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's exactly how I eat now. Like I watched, like I'll look at their plate, and they've got the protein, the carb, and the vegetable, and then I watch them like and that's what that tells me is they're doing their little behaviors that they're applying every day is actually what's helping them
Be the
maintain and sustain. Yeah. And so because I always used to, I know, because like these are the same colleagues that I would go out to have lunch and dinners with, and I started observing those little habits and behaviors when they're choosing food and things like that. I'm like, okay, so it's now no wonder to me why, that they've got that nutrition. Obviously, there's the movement and there's environmental things that come into it, but I started recognizing that the people around me who have been physically fit or mentally fit, it's like these little behaviors that they do every day that's keeping them that way.
Like structural success is pretty much what it is. Like because they've structured their habits and their life is so structured from earlier. It's like just part of who they are.
And it's so great that you can recognize that too, because like I still, every time that I go out and look at a menu, so when I was bigger, I used to look at, I always wanted a big portion. I always wanted chips on my plate. Always. That was it. So it was always, chicken palmy or like a burger or something like that. And still to this day, the first thing I do is look for something on the menu that's got a side of chips on it. And then I sit there and go, no, Alita, that's not you anymore. And then I re-look at the menu and I'll end up going for something like the oyster Kilpatrick or like the calamari.
Breakfast, she's very she goes because we obviously share a lot, and she'll go, what do you want? And I said, well, I think I know what you want. And the way I know what Alita wants is the most random ass thing on that menu she'll want. Like it's usually like corn fritter or like I'm here looking like eggs Benedict or like avo smash, and I'm like, what would Alita want? And I'm looking at her like, oh, this one's random, she'll want that. And then she's like
potato rosties
or like corn fritters, and like I'm like, who even chooses that? Why is that even on there? But that's usually what Alita wants, which it's usually delicious, and we usually end up getting that, and I really enjoy it. But I usually look for the very standard like eggs Benedict, avo smash, like those kind of things. And it's nice to have you pushing the envelope of like trying these new things and understanding
I'm all about
different
flavor.
tastes.
I just want flavor. So if there's something unusual on the menu that I've never tried before, I'm going to try it.
Yeah, well, like even edamame and stuff like that. Like these are all things that were foreign to me. Tomatas. Like I'd never tried all these things, and then it wasn't for Alita like going, oh, and I'm like, what's that? And then I'm like, I'll try that. And I'm like, wow, these are actually delicious. Like these are really nice, nutritious alternates to, chips or whatever it was that I would have had once upon a time. So kind of having that, experiencing those things and educating yourself with those different forms of food and proteins and blah, blah, you surprise yourself because you're very set in your ways and very like, I know I look at a menu and I usually look for the standard things. Yeah. Where there's other things that will bring you more satisfaction through your taste buds and also probably not hit your waistline as hard. So it's really a win-win.
Now, I think it's very evident that you have worked on your mindset throughout this whole process. It's quite like your mind blows my mind. But that sounded really weird. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing pre-surgery, what would it be?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, gosh.
Everything's going to work out, actually. That's probably something simple like that.
Yeah.
Everything is going to work out because while I'm really structured and I try and dream big, there is that little part at the back of my head that kind of always goes, why if it doesn't work out, Yeah. But I think for anyone that's out there, if you plan well and you do your research and you have people around you that are going to provide you with that support, just know that everything is going to work out. It might not work out exactly how you envision it to be. Like I understand that some people have complications after the surgery or have issues that didn't arise as a result of the surgery. But I feel like all those things, and that comes back to my mindset. I'll go, all right, so what's this trying to teach me? What is, what tools do I have? Yeah. What people do I have access to that can help me get to that next stage? Yeah. But before, I wanted to say something while we were talking about food. I do have one thing that I'm working on really, really hard to try and deal with. It's, and I think one of your previous podcasts touched on this is alcohol. So I noticed that prior to my sleep, I would drink probably once or twice a year. Wow. Post sleep, I drink a glass. I'm not to the point of intoxication, but I'll have 1 or 2 glasses of wine every day.
Yeah.
And I recognize that that's a thing I need to keep tabs on. So obviously, using how my brain works is my dietitian had advised allow maybe to start with 3 days no wine at all, like just your standard glass. So I started with that. I used to order wine online, so I used to get boxes delivered.
Yep.
I've stopped that because I felt like it made it too accessible. So I'm putting in things just to make sure it doesn't become a problem.
Almost making it harder, so like you kind of have more time to understand.
Yeah.
Do you need it?
Yeah,
do you want it? Why do you want it?
Yeah. And I was trying to think maybe I have considered from time to time whether or not I need to see a psychologist about like just my thoughts on drinking and food, because I'm trying to, because at one stage I thought maybe I'm drinking more because I'm getting the kick out of it that I used to get from just eating like unhealthy food like Macca's and things like that. Like and because I'm thinking, why am I drinking? Am I drinking because I want to drink, or is it like that? It's becoming a habit, and I just want to break that.
Yeah,
So
it's very good that you're acknowledging
very
that.
mentally aware.
Yeah,
like I like it. It's like, and you, because you go into great depth with like analyzing yourself, and you're not afraid to kind of call yourself out, which I think is like a really powerful tool for you, because you can sit there and be like, I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I doing this? It's not just a case of going, oh, it is what it is. You're literally going, why?
Yeah.
Why am I doing it? How can I change it? Do I need this in my life?
Yeah. So I recognize I put it in the an issue that I need to consider and either fix or pause. Is like the moment where you put the glass there and you're pouring the wine, and like in your head, I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I want to do this. Like, you know, and I want to do, and I'm like, okay, so that to me is that kind of gray area of that thing having that much power over me.
Yeah, self-control.
It shouldn't.
It's funny because I read on your form when you said that you've stopped ordering, you know, your online wines because it became too accessible. I made a joke with Shannon saying, well, in that case, we've just got to pack up and move because the bottle shop is literally 150 meters away from our house. So I was like, the only way that this is going to break my habit, like, oh, I'm good. If I don't need the wine, but once I've had a glass or two, I'm like, oh, I need all the wine. And my problem is not being able to stop. And then so like I'll like I have a bottle of wine in my fridge at the moment, and I know that there's only one glass in it, but I can guarantee that because that bottle shop's only 150 meters away from me, I'll go, oh well, why stop at one glass? So I'll go to the bottle shop and I'll buy another bottle, and then like that's
the thing I always say. Glass 1 and 2 make glass 3 and 4 sound like a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
like they convince you that the other 3 need to come with it.
I'm not supposed to. I'm sure there's research out there about it. Like there has to be something about because I think it is. There's data to show that people who've had bariatric surgery, there is this a higher
alcoholism.
Yeah. And there has to be something to it. You know, we've switched from just eating to maybe drinking. I don't know. So
it's almost like
I am aware of it.
Yeah, you're looking for other ways of fulfillment, because food is kind of becoming a little bit more uncomfortable to have in the volume and excess like you had. You look for liquid forms of that maybe. You're 100% right, and it's something we've talked about a few times with the high percentage of alcoholism after bariatric surgery. Alcoholism, and it is something that we need to monitor, because you do see some people taking it to extremes. And I know personally I got to an extreme at one point and I've had to rein it in, but I also realized saying no more isn't the solution for me, because as soon as I say I can't have it, I want it more. So I think monitoring it and having it in like not every day for me has become like just cutting it out once or twice a week or 3 times a week is the best solution for me.
I do dictation letters for a bariatric dietitian. So I will sit there and she speaks into her phone, and then she sends them to me, and I type them out and send them on to the GPs. And one of the most common things is that she'll tell everybody, you know, not to stop drinking alcohol, but, you know, to have at least 2 or 3 alcohol-free days a week. And depending on what their consumption is, it might be, you know, Alita's having 2 bottles of wine a week. So we might, instead of her saying, don't have 2 bottles of wine, she'll just say, you know, rein it down to just having 2 glasses of wine, or, you know, only drinking on weekends. Or so that's my biggest takeaway from all of the letters that I do for her, is that, you know, it's not to stop it completely. She never tells people to just cut it out. She just says, you know, monitor how many. So like for yourself, you said you make sure that you only have 2 glasses and you have X amount of alcohol-free days a week. And I think that's, that's what I keep on needing to take out of it. Not, I don't need to have 1 glass every day. Just have 1 glass. Pick your days. Somebody's coming over for dinner. Have a glass of wine with them. I don't need to be drinking every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes prevention is the best method of so it's kind of like, so it's like not completely cutting it out, but just slowly weaning yourself back to a degree and controlling it. And having that control is very important. Well, Charlie, you have been amazing. Anything else you want to, put out there as something that you found very important for you throughout your process?
Any final words?
Yeah, I think my final words would be if there's anyone out there who's considering bariatric surgery, I think I am an advocate for it if it's appropriate for you. Reach out to your GP, your surgeon, see all the medical practitioners that you need to see to help you make an informed decision. And it's important to get some support group around you.
Yeah.
Read extensively, follow people who have been successful, and you can do what I did. Look at what are some of the habits and behaviors that they're doing that you can apply for yourself to make sure that you're successful. So do all that planning phase beforehand, and then I suppose I think deep down inside you already know what you want to be.
Yeah.
So,
very wise words from a very wise fella. Charlie,
we will make sure that we pop your Instagram handle in the notes
in the bio below
on the
so if
screen.
you want to, is Facebook or Instagram which one would you usually prefer people to?
Instagram.
So if you do want to reach out to Charlie, he's got a great mind, and I'm sure he's willing to share it with you and answer any questions you may have. So guys. Apart from that, thanks, Charlie. Absolute pleasure to sit down with you. Thank you very much. That is another episode
for having me.
Of Barry Banter. Why, yes, that is another episode of Barry Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.